On today's episode of Locked On Pistons podcast, we are going to be joined by James Edwards III, Detroit Pistons beat writer for The Athletic. We're going to be talking about the offseason, expectations for this upcoming season. We'll end it off with a little game of yes and no. Stay tuned for all of that on today's episode of Locked On Pistons podcast.
You are Locked On Pistons, your daily Detroit Pistons podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's the deal? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast. Per usual, I'm your host, Kuka Hill. You can find me over on Twitter at Kuka Hill. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We're free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button. We just crossed over 6,000 subscribers. We're now on the road to 7,000 subscribers. The goal is by the end of this upcoming season, we'll be at 10,000 subscribers. So if you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button, or you can leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. So we are joined by James Edwards III, The Athletic Detroit Pistons beat writer. James, I want to thank you for coming on and finding time to get on the podcast. I know you're a busy guy. You got your own podcast. You're obviously still writing during the offseason. So we don't plan on keeping James too long today. I want to let him get back to enjoying his offseason. But speaking of the offseason, so last episode, James, I gave my grade of the Pistons offseason. And it's not finished yet. We have like 2 months before like preseason even starts. So like they could still make moves. But based off what they've done so far, we're recording this on August 3rd. Based on what they've done so far, what would be your overall feelings on what Weaver has done this offseason with this team?
I think the team got better. I think that's first and foremost. I think fans probably wanted something sexier, more of a splash. They didn't do that. And I'm sure that was underwhelming to some. And I understand that. I get that from the fan perspective, but I don't think there's really any denying that the team did get better this summer. Monty Morris is as stable of a backup guard as you can get in this league. Joe Harris has been, one of the best shooters in the NBA. Whether or not he cracks a rotation, we'll find out. But if you have Joe Harris on ice, that's not a bad guy to have on ice, right? Just in case other guys aren't shooting. I think most of the fan base is on board with Asar Thompson, who I know people like to. I always find this interesting and it's getting a little bit off topic, but when it comes to drafting, people are always like, well, he was the no-brainer pick, right? Not him, but like, for example, people said it with Cade, like he was a no-brainer pick. I think he was a no-brainer pick to Pistons fans, but there was a legitimate discussion if it should be Green, Mobley, or Cade, right? I don't think that was as easy as people thought. Then they say the same thing about Ivy. I don't think it was a guarantee that I know Pistons fans love Jaden Ivey, but I don't think it was a guarantee that he should have went 5, right? I think you could talk yourself into some other guys. And then there's Asar, who some people love, some people didn't know much about. Even though it was a 5th pick, it wasn't a no-brainer, you have to pick this guy. So I think they have drafted well, and I think Asar is the latest in that. And I think getting him and seeing how he looked at Summer League helps kind of the outlook of the offseason. And then I think you have to factor in Monty Williams too, right? You can't just forget that. So I think if you just look at the players, I think it's probably a C, but then when you factor in Monty, I think it goes to a B personally. You can say B- if you want, or B or B+, whatever you want to say. I think it goes from a C to a B when you factor in Monty.
So that basically my grade was a C+, and it basically was for the same reason you said. I thought I don't think they made any great moves. I don't think they made any bad moves. I thought it was okay. It was all right. And then hiring Monty versus some of the other options, which I wasn't too big of a fan of. And obviously Monty has been to the finals. He's been one of the better coaches in the league. Getting him obviously raises the grade a little bit. So I ended up with a C+, but somewhere around the same range. Something I wanted to ask you about with what you just said is you said that the team got better. And my question, we're going to talk, I'm going to reference some of the articles you've written over the last few weeks. So I've checked them out. So,
thank you, Koo.
Of course. I always tell everyone to get a Athletic subscription because, you need to have one.
I thought you hated me.
Nah, I don't hate you, man. We just disagree on some things sometimes. That is what it is.
I'm just messing.
But, okay, so I agree that the team got better. But my question for you is, how much better did they actually get? And this is why I'm asking this question.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe the only area, at least in my opinion, that the Pistons actually got better at from a position wise is like you mentioned with Monty Morris, because Killian Hayes was up and down. And even though I'm a Killian Hayes believer, it was more down than up, especially towards the end of the season this past year. You get Monty Morris, who's been very stable, very consistent. He's not going to knock your shoes off, but he's not going to lose you a game. He's very consistent. That was a big upgrade there at the backup point guard spot. But like you mentioned, they acquired Joe Harris, which was, to me, and you can correct me if you disagree, but to me it was, okay, we're not too big of fans with this free agency class, and instead of soaking up our cap space with long-term contracts, we'll absorb our cap space with this one-year deal, and we'll take on some second-round picks to do it. And I looked at your Athletic article, I believe it was a week and a half ago or 2 weeks ago, predicting the rotation, and you didn't have Joe Harris in the rotation, which I agree with. I don't think he's going to be in the rotation. So my big thing with the Pistons that I've said over and over on the podcast the last few weeks is that I think hypothetically, if you just look at the guys that were brought in, they address shooting. They got more shooting on the team, but how much shooting can actually be played on the floor, will be played on the floor with your main guys like Cade and Ivy? How many lineups can you actually make that will play this season that actually will equate to the team being better outside of just assuming internal improvement, if you get what I'm saying?
No, I do. And I think it's a fair question. So like you said, I think they got better by adding 2 players who are, like, we know for a fact are NBA players. Like whether you like them or hate them, like, they've been NBA players for quite some time. So that helps, right? Like, I think we all agree on that, whatever. I mean, at the end of the day, and I'm sure people are tired of me saying it, the success in the short term and the long term are determined on the internal development, right? Like, that's what a rebuild is. So do we know if they got better? Like, on paper they did, but the game's not played on paper. I think we all just believe that Cade is him and has the potential to be really good, and we think we'll see that this year. We all liked what we saw from Jaden and Jalen. So, like, if those are the 3 pillars to the rebuild, like, if they get better, the team's going to get better. And of course, they won 17 games last year. You can't hide from that. You can't run from that. But when you look at the roster, they would have won more than 17 games if Cade played 60 plus, if Bojan played 60 plus, if Stu played 60 plus. Like, I'm not saying they would have made the play in or anything, but I think they're closer to 30 than they are 15 personally. I mean, me and you, I know you have to watch, or you do watch every game too. Like, we can name 4 or 5 games that they blew without Cade in the final moments, right? So, like, this roster that they pulled out last year realistically was very close to having 21 or 22 wins. Again, not good. I'm not sitting here saying that's a good number, but I don't think it's like, as 17 is just like, people see that and it's like, holy crap, that's abysmal. But, like, were they really a 17-win team? Probably not. So I mean, again, I know the internal development angle is tiring. And I know people enjoy trades and free agency and likes to make big splashes and all that. But it does come down to the internal development from those 3 to Stu, Livers. If so, like, I think this team could be better than people think. And I also think, like, the trade market, like, to me, they're setting up to make a trade. I don't know who that player will be. I know, well, like you could look and see, like, if things go well with Miles Bridges in Charlotte, I think he's eligible to get traded in, like, December. I think he just signed, like, he just signed his qualifying offer, right?
Yeah, I believe he's going back in the QO.
Yeah, so, like, maybe they keep an eye on that, right? So, like, I think there's possibilities, and I think, to your point, I don't think they love this class. Cam Johnson's a good player. I'm not giving Cam Johnson $28 to $31 million when he can't play more than 60 games in a season. And excuse me. And if anybody has any hesitations about his health going forward, you would think the one that would be in the know would be the Pistons head coach, who was his head coach for a long time, right? So I'm sure that they really seriously considered Cam. I don't know that. I'm not reporting this. I'm not saying this is factual. I would just imagine that Monty provided a lot of intel, and if they wanted to go get Cam, they had the money to go get Cam. But maybe as a group, they just decided going to 30 million doesn't make sense if you can't play that many games. I like Harrison Barnes. I thought Harrison Barnes would have been a good fit. Kings got him on a good deal, Detroit would have had to pay more to get him, right? And then who are we missing from the wings? Jeremy, they're not going up to 32. They couldn't even go up to what Jeremy was making. So I think they just punted, did a good job of adding still NBA players, adding more draft picks. And I think they're still setting themselves up to make a trade, whether the near future or distant future.
So we're getting to the end of the segment, and I don't want to prolong it too much, but I do want to say one of the points that you brought up is something I've said in the podcast too, is that, yeah, they won 17 games. And look, I was one before the season that was telling fans, like, this is going to be another horrible season. Like, they're not going to be good. But I don't think, I've said, like, if you have Kate on the team, I think they're probably like a 23-win team, which is still like bottom of the league. I don't know if they would have ended up with like the top odds in the lottery at 23. I think that might have been like second or third. But either way, you're looking at like a bottom tier team of the NBA still. So the reason why I bring that up is because when people say, you know, can they win 32 games next year? People will be like, okay, well, that's 15 game improvement. That's huge. Where I am looking at it more so like this was really like a 22, 23 win team. So 9 game improvement isn't as bad if you look at it in that perspective, which is why I expect for this team to really be hovering around this upcoming season, which takes me to what we're going to be talking about in the next segment, which is what are the expectations for this upcoming season with the Detroit Pistons. Stay tuned for that. But first, I've got to tell you guys about one of our sponsors, Ibotta. Picking up burgers and hot dogs for a summer barbecue, you know you're already doing it, so why not get cash back for it with Ibotta? It's officially summer, and a new season means new clothes. But your closet, shouldn't be the only thing growing when you make those purchases. Now you can also watch your cashback grow with each purchase with Ibotta. Ibotta gives you cashback on hundreds of grocery items from produce to personal care to pantry goods, so you can make sure you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. Either link your loyalty account, upload your receipt after your shop, and get your cash back. It's just that easy. The average Ibotta user earns $120 per year. That could cover the cost of an entire shopping trip. Or you could use your cash back to buy that flight you've been eyeing to get, that game you've been dying to go to, or the fancy dinner that you've been craving. Other apps give you points that don't amount to too much, but with Ibotta, you can get real cash back that you can cash out to your bank account, PayPal, or gift cards. You can earn cash back on hundreds of online brands and retailers too when you start with Ibotta, including Lowe's, Macy's, Sephora, Best Buy, and more. Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 just for trying Ibotta by using code LOCKED when you register. Just go to the App Store or Google Play Store and download the free Ibotta app and use code LOCKED. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play or App Store and use code LOCKED with Ibotta. I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We're free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons, hit that subscribe button, or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. There were a few things that James mentioned in the first segment that I wanted to comment on, but I don't want this podcast to go on like an hour. Last time me and James recorded, it was like 50 minutes or so. I don't want us to go that long again.
I'm yours until 3. So if you need,
go ahead. Just to let everyone in behind the curtains real quick. It's not so much James I'm trying to, be concerned with here about that. It's, I maybe get a little talking to when I go a little bit too long with the podcast. You feel me?
Okay.
But so this, before we move on to this upcoming season expectations, the only thing I wanted to ask James real quickly, I could have saved this for the final segment, but I figured we would forget. Is there one move, just removing your, I guess, like taking off your reporter and beat writer hat, just from following the team, etc. Was there one move or maybe one player that you really thought the Pistons were going to really like go hard for, really get, that they didn't actually do?
This summer?
Yeah, this past summer. A trade? Was there a trade that you expected to happen that hasn't happened yet? Like, is there anything that, like, just not asking for insight, but just you someone who's followed the team, was there something you were expecting that hasn't happened?
Let me think. I mean, I thought they would. I knew that going in that they had interest in bringing back Jeremy Grant. My guess is somewhere along the way they learned what his number was going to be from Portland and backed out. Same with Cam Johnson. I thought they were very interested in Cam Johnson, to me, until the last few weeks, which is why I kind of make the connection of like, okay, maybe Monty loves him, thinks he's a good player, but should the Pistons pay him this much when he doesn't play? And that, again, that's not me reporting. That's just making connections. Anything else? I mean, I still think I still think one of the front court guys gets traded and Killian, but it hasn't happened yet. And I also could see them keeping I also could see them keeping the front court and one of them just not playing, because it's not like Bagley, solid NBA player. Like, we're not questioning that. We know what he can do. But like, he's not always healthy. So, I mean, do they maybe just keep both for the depth? I don't know. I think they definitely would be open to trading one of them if somebody would do it. But then, yeah, Killian's the next one. And it's just because they've added Monty Morris, who clearly is going to play. And they drafted Marcus Sasser. And I don't know if they view him as a 1 or a 2 yet. I think it's still too soon to find out, but I don't know. I'd like to know your opinion. Like, do you see room for Killian as the roster is right now?
So no, I don't really. I talked about this like on a podcast like maybe a week and a half ago or so. And like, cause I read Keith Langlis Pistons mailbag, like I think it was like 2 weeks ago or something.
Mm-hmm.
And he mentioned in there something about if Killian improves, he can find minutes somewhere on this team. And I was like, I don't know if that's actually true. Cause this is like my thing before, and I don't want to go too far off, but my thing before like the offseason really got started was I thought they should bring in comp for Killian Hayes to where like if he actually is playing next year, is because he earned and actually did improve. Mm-hmm. Now, the thing is with this roster is that I don't think this wasn't a Killian Hayes beat this guy out and you can get minutes. This was a we're replacing you kind of thing. Like they're not going to, I don't feel like this was a fair battle, him versus Monty Morris. I don't think he can beat Monty Morris out for minutes. So I think they're going to
really quick. You don't think he can because do you not think he can because you think they made their mind up, or do you not think he can because you don't think he's better than Monty Morris?
I think they've made their mind up.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's fair. That's fair.
Because they've gone, if they would have so look, if they would have like moved Burks, then maybe I could have seen him maybe fighting for Sasser for immediate minutes, and then they could fight for that too. But with them having both Burks and Monty, and then also drafting Sasser, it was just like, it felt like, yeah, we're not like that. That felt like a decision made, like we're done. Kind of
thing. I mean, I don't know that for certain. I also, just to play devil's advocate, if that was the price for Monty Morris, like I think you just do it anyway, because whether or not you end up keeping him long term, like somebody will want Monty Morris in his expiring contract at the trade deadline, which is why I don't understand why the Wizards just didn't keep him, especially for what the Pistons gave up.
Like, well, the Wizards didn't they got Tyus and Jordan Poole, so they probably were trying to make up some room, maybe.
I guess maybe, and I understand that, but it's also like, somebody will give you something good for Monty Morris at the deadline. Like, I'm not saying like a lottery protected first or anything, but if the Pistons got 2 seconds or like a protected late first, like, it wouldn't surprise me. Monty Morris is a good guard. Teams need guard play going into the playoffs. Like, I just didn't understand why the Wizards, from asset management standpoint, I'm not sure why. I didn't get why they did that. I don't know their cap situation, so maybe that has something to do with it. But no, that's fair. I mean, I can understand why you view it like that. Like, it's like, okay, we're going to get him out of here. But my question to you is, to me, if you're doing that, you have to know you can part ways with him. Are you, like, if you're another team, like, what are you giving up for Killian? Obi Toppin got 2 seconds.
Yeah, I'd give up a second.
But you have a Killian tattoo.
No, I don't have a Killian tattoo.
I'm messing with you.
But like, a second isn't like, the thing is that I pictured like Killian and Bagley being packaged together in like a bigger trade at some point. That's why I was expecting to see happen this offseason, like Killian and Bagley, or maybe Killian and Wiseman,
or like DeAndre Hunter.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah,
and like, if like for a team that's trying to get off salary, I guess that long-term salary, get like expirings, whatever. That's what I was expecting to see happen. But it hasn't happened yet, and I feel like the market, maybe people are waiting for like the James Harden and the Lillard deals to happen, whatever, before they see what happens. I just think Killian, again, I'm a Killian believer. Everyone on the podcast knows this, but I think it's like, I'm pretty sure. I feel comfortable saying now they're done with him. That's how I feel right now.
I think. I mean, I don't know that to be fact. Like he was with the team in Vegas. I think I understand why you're coming to that assumption. So like I won't argue that. Now, do I think they could get a second for him? I would think so. I think a team like if I'm the Spurs, like I would do that. They need a point guard. There's the Victor Killian connection, change of scenery, like for sure. My question is, if that's all it takes, like why hasn't that happened yet? So either I can't imagine our valuation of what he'd be worth is off, right? Just because you wouldn't expect somebody giving up more than what they gave up for Obi Toppin, right? Just based on what they've done, right? But then again, it's like, so are the Pistons holding out for something more? Like that's kind of where my question is. Like maybe there's, like you said, I don't know if it's Bagley per se, but maybe there is a package and there's something in the pipeline. I don't know for sure. But certainly if it was just a second, you would think that it would already get done by now.
Well, I did bring up the possibility. And this is if Kuka was the GM, this is what I would do. If I'm taking over right now and like
Stanley would still be here.
No, well,
Sekou would start at the 4.
No, well, Sekou would have been given an actual chance as a prospect. That would have happened for sure. But
he did start like the last 30 games, but that's fair. He was like a kid. Go ahead.
But and he played well in the last 30 games he played in his final season with the Pistons. But anyway,
the first half of those 30 games was better than the last half. But there was a spurt of solid basketball. Yes,
there was.
Yes.
So if I was the GM of the team right now, and by the way, Bruce Brown would still be on the team too if I was the GM. So. But if I was a GM right now, I would hold on to Killian until preseason. And my whole thing or basically I'd probably hold on to him. My hope would be, hopefully he comes in the training camp and plays well and like actually has improved. And you play him a lot in the preseason, see if he's improved. And if he plays well, hopefully that helps raise his value a little bit. Mm-hmm. Or maybe teams see him and like, okay, he's looking a little bit better. We can take his contract on. And maybe you can get a second if they're not getting a second right now. I just wait to see if he actually outplays or actually improves or not. And then in that situation, like in the hypothetical that he does show up to training camp in preseason and is actually playing really well and is impressing people, then you have like, instead of where you're at right now, where it's like, okay, we just want to get rid of him. Now you would then be at the position of, okay, he's actually playing well. Maybe we do want to find minutes for him, or okay, he's playing well. We can move him and try to get a second now. Maybe a team would be more interested in at that point.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I just have a tough time figuring out where his minutes are, even if he does play well, like with Monty, Burks, Cade, Ivy in the picture. Like could you go 3 guards? Yes, but then that probably leaves, assuming Asar doesn't start, you're going to play Asar at the 4. So does that mean Livers just out of the rotation? No. Like I just think there's too much. There's just too much mumble jumble you have to do. Unless he's genuinely better than Monty, like I think they would play him. I mean, Monty's as good of a backup as there is in the NBA. So I mean, it's possible. I just want to see it, right?
Yeah, I mean that's where if I had to make a decision, I would just wait and see with it. Just not even to like want to play him, but just to maybe he can elevate his
for sure.
Price tag.
And I think that's probably smart. Yeah.
Because especially if like as of right now, if they're not able to get like even a second for him or have to attach him to I don't know, a Bojan or something, or like, because isn't that what the Mavs wanted? They wanted Bojan with them or something. Like if they have to do something like that, then obviously no.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I think the Mavs wanted Bojan in that deal, of course, and I think that the Pistons might have. It didn't come to fruition. I don't know. I know about the trade. I just don't know exactly how it pieced together.
So, I mean, well, it is what I think his time with the Pistons is over. And as a Killian fan, I just like him to go to a team when he gets a chance.
I think the Spurs would be perfect.
Yeah, the Spurs. I have the Spurs, the Raptors, and the Bulls are like the 3 teams I'd like to see him go to.
That's the team I think the Bulls are a sneaky team to watch out for. I think they have the trade exception or disabled player exception that's almost
with
identical to his contract. Yeah.
And he kind of fits like what they need at the point guard.
They need a setup man. Yeah, they need a setup man. Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah, go ahead.
If the Lions win a playoff game,
no, the jersey's not coming off.
Okay,
all
right,
the jersey's not coming down. And if they win a playoff game, Jared Goff's not better than Stafford because we have eyes and we can see who's a better quarterback.
I don't know, man. But we won't get into that. Go ahead. I don't want you to get in trouble from your boss.
All right. So when we come back, I guess we'll actually talk about the upcoming season expectations. We kind of got off the rails there, but that's fine. We'll talk about the season expectation. Then we'll wrap up with me asking James some questions. He can just say yes or no to. Stay tuned for that. But first, you guys got to hear from some of our sponsors. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We're free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. All right, James, just straight up, what's your expectations for this season, man?
I'm still sifting through what I think my expectations are, right? Like what I think a reasonable expectation is. On the high end, I think a reasonable expectation is that they are legitimately like a game and a half out of the play-in for the entirety of the season. I think that is a high-end legitimate possibility, right? I don't know if it's likely, unlikely, whatever. I think it's something that I don't think it's out of the realm of possibilities, right? Like I keep doing the OKC reference, and Shea was a top 10 player in this league last year, but Jalen Williams is a monster, and I've eaten my words on Josh Giddey, but I think the Pistons front court is better than OKC's. I think if Cade can make the 80% leap of what Shea was, Ivy makes a little, like, I just don't think it's impossible for them to like flirt with 33, 34, 35 wins. I don't think it's impossible. On the low end of expectations, I think it's like, I think you got to get to 30 to make people feel good.
Oh, I don't even think 30 would make people feel good.
You don't think so? If it's a 13-win jump?
Like, I don't think it would make fans happy. Like, I'm not saying I disagree with it. I'm saying I don't think fans would be happy with with a 30-win season. You think fans would? You think fans?
Not casual fans, no. No, not casual fans. But I do think those that are like super duper invested, like understand how hard. I shouldn't say hard, but it's not an easy thing to do a 13-win jump, and you're still relatively young. Yeah, I mean, if you want me to just like pick a thing, I think it's being playing contention. I think that's a reasonable expectation.
All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and be Debbie Downer here. So my listeners know that if this is going to be now the second straight year now that I have to come out here and have to be, Debbie Downer of the offseason and try to rain in everybody's parade. I think I'm going to end up being right though. But so this is what I want to pose to you.
Mm-hmm.
So did you see ESPN's power rankings?
I don't think so. What, of like actual power rankings? Like they rank the teams? No, I didn't see it.
So it came out 4 days ago, and it was a big talking point in the Pistons community. Everyone was so mad. So I came on the podcast.
They have them last?
Yeah, they had them last.
Okay.
So this is what I'm going to say. This is why I said on the podcast then. I think the team will be better than they were last year. I think Cade coming back helps. You hope Ivy makes a jump. You hope Durham makes a jump. You hope Stu makes a jump. You hope Livers make a jump. Whoever else makes a jump, whatever. But these are the two things. These are the two things I have here. Mm-hmm. And I want to know if you disagree with me here.
Mm-hmm.
So last offseason, I said this exact same thing. Everyone was expecting a jump from Stu. Everyone was expecting a jump from Sadiq. Everyone was expecting a jump from Killian. And I came on the podcast and said, can you expect improvement from some of these guys? Yes. But it doesn't happen often when you see jumps taken from every single player of your young core. Everything going right in a season just doesn't happen. Like you may get one from one player, two players, but the entirety of everything going right, it rarely ever happens. And I dealt with the tomatoes and the.
I agree with that. I agree. I would say that Stu was probably the one that made a noticeable leap. You might agree or disagree, but that's how I feel. Like he got better. And I don't know if I would say that about the rest of the crew that you named.
Yeah, I think fair? Sadiq. Yeah, I think Sadiq showed he's traded. So I think he pretty much showed like he needed to go. So
right, I think that's fair.
I think that's what he showed. And I think this is You're gonna make me. My listeners are gonna be so mad because I told them I'm not talking about Killian no more, and I haven't for a while.
That's fine. That's me with Isaiah Stewart because people act like he's just like shouldn't play NBA basketball. No, it's crazy. I'm not people think that he's so and it's not a lot of people. It's a small pocket of people that think he's so bad that I have to like bring the realization that's like, and it sounds like I'm saying I think he's going to be an all-star. It's like, I'm not saying that. It's just like, he's an NBA player, guys. Like he is.
So look, just staying on that in this quick topic, and then we can keep going with what we were talking about just real quickly. So Stu played well for about, I think it was like a 28 game sample. Then he hurt his shoulder I think against Golden State it was, I think.
Yeah.
And then his shooting percentages dropped the rest of the year and kind of lowered it back. I believe he was shooting like 37% from deep at that point through the 28 games, and then shot real poorly the rest of the year, ended up at 32%. What do you think would happen? I seriously want to know. I posed this question like to my listeners a few weeks ago. What do you think would have happened if Killian got hurt the game before Paris and didn't play the rest of the year? What do you think like the narrative would be on him in this offseason? If he like broke his hand, let's say he broke his hand, didn't play the rest of the year, and all we had was that 30-game sample.
Oh yeah, I see what you're saying.
All we had was that 30-game sample from shooting 37% from deep.
Well, I think that's a little skewed. I think it's a little misremembered. He didn't start the year well. Like the first month.
He didn't.
No, it was basically the month of November or maybe the month of December that it was like, okay. Like it was 1 month, if we're being honest, where he was like really good. Or
I don't know,
really solid. We'd have to go back and look. I try to that's so long ago. I guess that's a fair question, but I also think that, I don't know. I also think that people are more soured on Killian.
No, that's 100% true.
Yeah, the reaction would be different. But I also think you should go back and check. Stu, I think it was after January. He shot like 7 of 12 his last 12 threes or last 20 threes. He was back over 50% like during that stretch. Like it was coming back around right before he went out. I don't have it right in front of me.
I'll pull it up for you.
Yeah, like look at his last, I don't want to say 6 games before he went out. Like it was back over 50% during that stretch. On good volume too. I think people forget that.
All right, so I'm gonna look. So over his final 8 games,
yeah, Go ahead.
His final 8 games, he was shooting 35% on 5.4 attempts a game.
Right, so it was going back up, and I think if you do his final 4 or 5 games, it was over 50.
We can do that. Let's look at the final 5. His final 5 was at 47.
Okay, 47. So I think people do forget that too. Like it was going back up. And I think if he had played the rest of the year, I think he could have got to like 35 for the year and everybody would have felt differently about whether or not they believe in his shooting or whatever. But we can't argue that it didn't happen. It's not going to happen. But I think you make a fair point. I think there would be more excitement. There would be more excitement from the fans for Killian going into this season because of probably if it stopped after December or whatever month it was where he was going crazy. Yeah, early January. Yeah.
So I simply bring this up because after the first 10 games of his season, the next 34 games of the season, all the way leading up to Paris, next 34 games, he shot 36% from deep, 43% from the field, 12 points, 6.5 assists, 1.4 steals. I think if he would have just got hurt right there, I think if he would have just like broke his right hand and just didn't play the rest of the year, all of a sudden people are saying completely different. Because
I think you're right. I think that's fair.
But anyways, not to go too far with it, because I'm gonna end up getting chewed out by my listeners. But anyways, my point in bringing this up was going back to this upcoming season expectations. If you look at the ESPN Power Rankings, the Pistons were last, and the teams immediately ahead of them: Washington, Portland, Charlotte, San Antonio, Toronto. So those are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teams immediately ahead of them. I think the team will be better than their 17 wins last year. I think Cade coming back, he'll be out help. Hope Ivy gets better. Hope Stu gets better. Hope Duran gets better. Hope Livers gets better. And, hopefully the vets around them can stabilize some things. My concern is that I think they could be better than the 17 wins next year. I can't guarantee that they're going to like jump some of these teams. Like you hear last place in the league and you're like, oh, there's no way they'll be last. But like the only teams I look at here and say like, okay, like I don't even know if I would put like money, like hardcore money, that they'll be better than these teams. But I'd look at like Washington and Portland if they trade Dame.
Yeah, I agree with that. I also don't think it's like out of the realm of possibilities for teams to regress. Like I need to see Utah do it again. There's still something that like feels a little fluky to me about them last year and their hot start. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I just need to see Utah again. I mean, there's a chance. I like what Orlando's building, but maybe they take a step back. Like they're still very young. Who else? Toronto's a weird one. Like I
feel like as long as they have Pascal, and OG, they're just not going to get jumped by the Pistons.
Right, and that's possible. I mean, yeah, like I'd be curious who, like where they had ESPN had OKC last year, though. You know what I mean? Like it's something always happens, and I know Detroit fans are scheduled to not think, well, why not us? Because it's never us, right? It's never you guys. But like you never know. But I think I think Washington and Portland are the only two teams I think Detroit, like, with 51-49 certainty could be better than.
Right. So I completely agree with that. That's where I'm at with it, which is why I don't think, like, it's hard for me to, like, put, like, real, like, expectations.
Right, you need to see it. You need to see it. I get it.
And
expectations are tough.
It's especially when it's just all relied on internal development. And I had Cade's brother on the podcast a few weeks ago, and I talked with him, and I asked, what are your expectations for Cade this season? Because my big thing with Cade is, and you brought it up earlier, and I brought it up before in the podcast a few times, is that everyone keeps making the SGA comparison. And SGA didn't make this like big jump until he was 23, 24 years old. Cade's still 21, and he's coming off an injury. So to me, I was like telling Cannon, I was like, I feel like all that, considering like the things that are being leveled at Cade, probably aren't really fair expectations. It's more so fans trying to like, hey, we want some wins now, so we have to like make ourselves believe something, because if he isn't SGA this season, how are we making this big jump? So I was kind of saying like, the expectations aren't really fair.
Yeah.
And he kind of like stopped me and was like, but that's what comes with the number one overall pick. Cade wanted to be the number one.
Cade is big on that. Yeah.
Yeah. He told us a really cool story too. He talked about how before the draft, he was like, he told them that we don't have to go first. We're from Texas. Houston has number 2. We can kind of like finagle this thing to where you can go 2. We don't have to go to Detroit. He said there's rumors that Weaver doesn't even want you over Jalen Green. Like, we don't have to go to Detroit. And Cade was like, no, I want to be number 1. I want the expectations that come with 1. I want to be the best guy in my class. Like, I want all of that. So while it's okay, it's cool that Cade wants the expectations, it's not going to stop Kuka Hill from saying, I don't think that the expectations of him being like, so
I don't
great
think that should be the expectation. I should make that clear.
Right.
I just think it's not out of the realm of possibilities, right? Like at the end of the day, Shea is, for the time being, Shea is proven to be a top 10 player in the league as we speak right now. But Cade was drafted with much higher upside than Shea at the time. So it's not like, I know people are like, Cade, you're just going to immediately usher Cade into a top 10 role. It's not what I'm saying. It's the potential to be there is there. Like, he was viewed as a much better prospect than Shea at the time. So I agree with you. Like, to expect that this year is not fair. Like, it's basically a second season. I just don't think it's impossible that it happens. That's all I've been trying to say.
All right, so we'll take that, and we'll end the podcast with a few yes and no questions now. We're going to play a quick game here then.
Okay.
Also, real quick, I don't think I ever like gave my real answer to you, like straight up answer. I think this team will win like 32 games this year. That's what my expectation is. I think that'll probably get them like 13th in the conference, maybe.
I think that's playing chase worthy, because you have to remember, if they get 32, other teams lost more.
Well, let's look at the Eastern Conference standings this past year and see what 32 would have got you. I haven't looked at it.
But you also have to remember, you have to retract wins from other teams if the Pistons win 15 more games.
Well, fair enough. So, I mean, if you just went off last year's standings, they would be right behind Orlando. Orlando had 34.
Okay.
So, I mean, 32, I think they'd have to, in order to make the play-in or sneak into the play-in or fight for the play-in, I think they'd have to be hovering around like 38. I think that's the win total they'd have to be for the play-in.
I don't think that.
You think it's lower?
Yeah, I think it'll be lower. Because read to me the records of the play-in teams again.
So you had Atlanta at 41-41, Miami at 44-38, Chicago 40-42, and Toronto 41-41.
Like everybody outside of Miami, I don't believe in. Not saying that I think the Pistons will be better. I'm just saying, like, I don't know. I don't. Do you feel good about any of those other three teams outside of Miami, like their futures?
No, not really.
You know what I mean? So you just never know. But I see what you're saying. I think that's fair. It's possible.
All right, so let's go ahead. Let me ask you some of these questions. First question, yes or no? Is Cade Cunningham an all-star this year?
No.
All right, next one. Will the Pistons make a trade before the start of the season?
Yes.
Will the Pistons make the play-in this year?
No.
Will Cade Cunningham win Most Improved Player of the Year?
Yes.
And okay, this one's not more of a yes and no. This is kind of a either or. Who makes a bigger jump this season? Jane Ivey or Jalen Duren?
I think Duren. Can I expound on it?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think Duren because Cade's back to have more of the ball, and Duren will be his lob partner.
Fair enough.
So I think statistically it'll pop more.
All right. Will Sarah Thompson make the all-rookie first team?
Second team.
All right, and then this will be the last one. Will Pistons fans at the end of this season look back on this season with a sense of happiness? I will be recording this and holding it to you for the rest of the next 5 years or so.
My prediction, my prediction is they flirt with the play-in, and I just said I think Cade legitimately has a chance to win Most Improved. And I almost feel like if he wins Most Improved, like there's a chance he's an All-Star, but he could just. I said no to All-Star just because the record won't be above 500, and he'll probably get. I think he'll be like one on the snub list, quote unquote. I think if Cade is first or second in Most Improved and they flirt with the play-in or make the play-in, yes, they will look back. Based on my expectation, yes, they will look back as this was the start of what we've been hoping for in terms of long-term success.
All right, fair enough. We'll wrap it up there. We'll end it there. Thank you, James, for coming on, man. We got out of here at 42 minutes. So not too much. I said before the podcast I wanted to go for like 40 to 45. That was like my goal, and we're at 42. Yeah. So I think we did good.
That's good. I appreciate it.
All right, so you guys can find James on Twitter at JLE or JL Edwards. I'm assuming those are 3 I's, right?
Yep.
And then also you can find him and Nick's podcast, Bun and Carrigan podcast. You can also obviously find all of his work at The Athletic. Thank you, James, for coming on, man. I appreciate you finding time out of your off season to come on here and talk with me.
No problem, man. Appreciate you having me. Send your wife my well wishes and hope everything's going well. Appreciate
it. So I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We're free and available on all your podcast platforms. Hit that subscribe button to the YouTube channel. Leave us a 5-star review, whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. Until next time, I'll see you guys later. Stay safe. Peace out.